time for the review. I'm probably going to make this is probably going to be its own video, simply because of the fact that this thing is going to be a doozy. And I can tell you that I'm glad that I got to play episodes 4 and 5 and technically the finale, um, because I mentioned earlier that I recorded a review only for the first 3 because that's all I could do. And that review was honestly pretty negative. And those negatives are still going to be here for this new one, but it's also going to have the positives from 4 and 5, which does brought a lot of positives, especially in some certain ways. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do it in 3 sort of segments: story, overall gameplay for the whole game, and then each individual episode after that. So, as far as the story goes, the first 3 episodes, honestly, there's not much to it. You get the introduction, of course. The most informative one is episode 1 with Daniel, how he hears a thingy, goes into elsewhere or there or whatever you want to call it, and then gets taken back out by whoever it was. Episodes 2 and 3 or whatever. Episodes 2 and 3 are straight up, like, I'm not gonna say they're superfluous because they're not, but like, story-wise, they don't go anywhere because all it is just, trying to find someone that ends up being a dead end. Which is why that was kind of negative, because especially for the story reasons. Episodes 4 and 5 get more in depth, because episode 4 gives you a huge hive mind identity about what happens people to people when they're in the presence of the presence. And they took a lot of inspiration from Knees of the Dark Descent, like I mentioned before, and I enjoyed it. Because here's the deal. Episode 4 gave you insight, and episode 5 did somewhat as well, as to the minds of the people who are warped by the presence, right? It's the people's perspective on the presence. Something that he didn't quite get with Daniel, because, I don't even know why. You get his desperation, but you don't get it like 100 years after the fact. Episode 5 introduces really Ariadne, where you find out about her. And she's the other part of that, where she was hurt at months old, so her mind is already warped with it. Episode 5 mostly gives you it gives you information on the presence itself. The fact that it's basically like a god. Like, straight up. Like, it's like everlasting. It's basically on a time loop, more on the time loop theory later, in a minute. But, like, it's like on a time loop. It's endless. You can't kill it. The one bad thing, to me, is the lack of the character mattering, right? Because the characters don't matter. Now I get it, this game is about the Song of Horror. It's the title of the fucking game, for fuck's sake. I get that. But, like, the characters should matter to some degree. With the exception of Daniel, everybody is only serves as an extra life. Do you get their different outtake on things? Like, if you examine an item, do you get different, speeches? Yes. But beyond that, they don't have a significant portion of the game, like each character. Like, if you die with characters, like I did initially, if you die with them, you'll get a slightly different cutscene in the beginning and ending of some episodes, and you can't play as them, or you might have other characters to play as for certain episodes. But even so, like, it's still just the same thing. Like, essentially, gameplay, like story/gameplay wise, these different characters are basically just cardboard. Daniel's the only one that matters. Like, there are only 3 people, actually, I guess technically 4, who had any sort of interest whatsoever in actually helping Daniel out of everybody. 1, Sophie. 2, Erica. 3, Etienne. Actually, that's it. Never mind, only 3. No, that's not true. Also the guys from episode 3, Omar and what's her face. Oh no, the fourth one was Lydia. Sorry, from episode 5. Forgot about her. Haha. So Etienne, Omar, and what's her face, the black bitch, go into their own separate category because they were there for professional business reasons, right? Because they're colleagues or because, the Husher thing, right? Because Etienne would have some sort of thing for this for the Husher thing, but realistically, let's be honest here, and this also goes actually for Sophie and the others more likely too. After experiencing the shit they experienced, right? Fucking voices out in the hallway, the claws appearing in the walls, having to keep doors shut, having to hide for your life, all these things. Dude, I don't know about you, like, if I had a friend who I'd been friends with for like, I don't know, fucking 10 years or some shit, and they needed help, I was like, yeah, I'll help you with that. When I start experiencing shit like that, I'll call them and say, yo, what the fuck? And then depending on what they'll be like, oh yeah, maybe. I mean, okay, I can assume that they've been aware. I'm going to assume this is headcanon that they're aware of the stakes of what they're doing, based on the fact that they already know everything, right? Like when it comes, being quiet for the certain monsters. Realistically, there's no way they would know that without being told. So they were told that. But even so, being told of something is abstract. Experiencing it for yourself is something different, right? It's I don't want to liken it to this, but I'll liken it to this because it's the first thing that came to my mind. It's kind of like virginity, right? Sex is great, but it's abstract when you're a virgin. You got masturbation, but that's pretty much it. Once you lose your virginity and actually start fucking, that's when you realize, what it's like. I don't know why I used that, but I did that comparison, but it's kind of like that. Like even knowing about the bullshit, once you start experiencing it, dude, you'd be like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." And that's such a truth. That's how you could be. Sophie, Erica, and Etienne and Lydia are somewhat different. Etienne would say, "Fuck that shit." Etienne only makes sense to be in episode one, although I'm pretty sure he's in more than that. Um, cause Husher was there, but after episode one, dude, Etienne would be like, "Fuck that shit, I'm out this bitch." Sophie and Erica. Okay, Erica has a purpose in episode two, just like she actually does. Her purpose is not for Daniel. Her purpose is for her father, Isaac. And now, would Erica be going through all that shit? Okay, Erica is honestly probably one of the most believable ones to be going through that shit. Maybe Sophie, maybe. Because with Erica at least, like, she can, like, that's her place. That's her workplace. That's where she lives. Like, she has a vintage, like, if there was a problem with the house I live in, right? Um, or like with my workplace, right? Like if I had a business for 10 years, before the year 2020, um, and then fucking there are like hauntings and shit, then yes, I would stay there and deal with it because that's my shit. So Erica has a bigger vested interest in it. But like Sophie and even Lydia, like so they have the most legitimate interest in being there. But even so, I don't see them sticking the whole way. And even if they die, it doesn't matter. Okay, like let's say Lydia. Okay, let's say Sophie, right? For Sophie, this isn't how it is, but it's how it is. Let's say Sophie has a good friend. Her good friend is Mr. Jerkoff. And let's say that Sophie and Mr. Jerkoff are playable characters for episodes 1, 2, 4, and 5. Normally. Well, let's say you choose Sophie in episode 2, and you die with Sophie. Now, let's say that after episode 2, Mr. Jerkoff goes to Daniel, and he says, hey, Daniel, you remember Sophie, that one bitch that I was close to, along with you, right? And you know what? Let's say Miss Jerkoff, right? Miss Jerkoff's like, I was close to Sophie, and Sophie died because of you, Daniel. So fuck you, right? So then, starting 4 and 5, Miss Jerkoff's not there anymore. And why is Miss Jerkoff not there anymore? Because she's pissed off because Sophie died, right? Like, have these be real people or feel like it rather than just caricature extra lives. That's my big issue with it. I don't have a problem. So I don't have a problem much with this with the presence part of it. The presence part of it I'm mostly fine with. It's the character part of the story that bothers me. And before I move on to the gameplay overall, there's one more part of the story too, which is the ending. I kind of wish it would again. The second music box is Elaine's, because Ariadne had an older sister, Elaine. which was presented by Ariadne, and that's how the whole shit happens at the end. Now, I'm not going to say this is bull. I looked at some discussion threads on this game to try and figure out the ending. A lot of people were calling bullshit. I'm not going to call bullshit per se, and the reason why is because I don't know. What do I not know? I don't know if it was ever hinted at that Elaine had that there was a second box, right? Because like there were paintings in the Ariadne house, and some had Ariadne and Elaine on them, the paintings themselves. So it's entirely possible, and I just overlooked it. I'm not going to go back and look. I honestly don't care enough to, but like it's entirely possible that there would have been a painting and like both of them were holding a music box, which would give you the hint that it's two. So I'm not going to shit on it because I don't know. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe it is the case that the second box just comes out of nowhere and it's some bullshit. But I don't know that, so I'm not going to shit on it. But what I will say is this. My initial theory, which turned out to be actually incorrect, about Ariadne being like the music box, like a living version of it, and that's why Dale gets fucked. I think that would have been a better ending, honestly. Even if the second music box is alluded to, whether or not it is, my version of it would have been better, where Ariadne herself is kind of like a thing like that, and then with that there could be an alternate ending, because there could be a black question mark thingy, and you could say, do you want to end Ariadne's life? Yes or no. If you end her fucking life, then you're scot free. If you don't, then you're fucked, right? That could be the whole deal there. Just my tip about the ending, but that was Elaine's, and there's all kinds of theories about which music box Daniel was listening to, yada yada. I'm not gonna get into all that because that's all speculation. I don't care much for speculation. At least speculations are not my own. I only care for what's actually going on. Now, one last thing, actually, I always say one last thing, but the final cutscene. There's one thing that I think I noticed, but maybe not. Um, it's the part where you find out that Daniel is in fact part of the presence, which actually it works wonderfully because when a character dies, it doesn't say XYZ died. It says XYZ came to an end, or and their story came to an end, or they did not make it. It never says they died. So every single encounter you have is not even with the presence per se, it's with other people wanting to escape the presence, which really sucks. Or it's both, right? Like the claws blown to the presence, but then like the actual things, and like even like the whisper in the hallway. I bet you the whispers in the hallway in the cold aren't even the presence per se. That's like the people trapped within it. But one thing I didn't notice, and in fact I'll play it right now.
What? Where am I? Hello?
Daniel, is that you?
Sophie? Sophie! Help me, please! Help! Somebody! Help me, please! Help! Let me out! Help!
Yeah, that part of it, that was the kitchen. I just didn't think about this the first time around when I saw it. That kitchen was the same kitchen from episode 1 of the game, and it's from the first time you do that shut the door mini game. It's from the first time you do that, from Daniel's perspective, and it's Sophie. Now I want to mention one thing here too. I used Sophie during episode 1, so on my cutscene in Sophie, it changes depending on who you play as. If you chose Etienne, it'll be Etienne. If you chose the black bitch, the security one, it'll be the black bitch security one. It was Sophie for me because I chose Sophie, right? Which means that Daniel was part of the thing all along, which is all about the time loop thing that I mentioned. Because Daniel's in some kind of time loop, like he's ever existing. Like the presence is in the past, present, and future. Because that's the only way it could be. Because that's how it knows everything. It's omniscient, and it's hell bent on death, for some reason. The way that the way that I'm thinking about the presence, is that it's straight up the god of death, right? The presence. That's what it is to me. Anyway, enough about the story. Now let's go ahead and go on to, and that's why it's way better, because now the story's more fleshed out. Now let's go ahead and go on to the overall gameplay. So, I'm going to go over the negative first, because to get out of the way. My single biggest complaint about the gameplay as a whole is the mini games. Straight up. Because Partly because there's not enough variety of them, just the mini games as a whole. So here's what happens, and I really noticed this when I had to go back and replay the first 3 episodes. Um, is that the mini games, the shutting the door, the holding the the quieting, all that, the hiding, they come along every once in a while, but like there's no health bar or anything. It's like it's either you pass the mini game and you live, or you don't and you fail. But and you die. Well, not die. You become part of the presence. But either way, though, like, and actually that brings something else too, really quick to this table. Like, is there a chance that you can meet anybody else? Like, if somebody gets devoured, in my playthrough nobody did, but if somebody gets devoured by the presence, can you see their character later on as a ghost? Because that'd be cool as fuck, right? Aside from just being, or maybe, well, no, you couldn't do that part. But like, as a ghost, maybe though, that'd be cool. But my point though is that like the mini games after a while, like this game, I can't deny it because so episode 1 and even 2 are fantastic. But like the further you go along, the overall gameplay gets less horror, straight up. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to mix some of the episode stuff in with this too. So, I will do that. Fuck it. So, like, episode 1 was good. Episode 2 was good. Episode 3 was the absolute worst one. And it was the worst one because it was small segments in a university. Oh my god, so scary. Um, and it introduced a new minigame that was better. Actually, episode 5, nothing but episode 5 didn't even introduce a new minigame. Episode 5 didn't even do that. Anyway, though, but like, so what these mini games do, I know I'm all over the place. What these mini games do is the game gets less scary as it goes on because the mini games, you come to realize that what they do is they basically just break it up, right? Like once you get way too comfortable, you get a mini game, you either survive it or you don't, and that's it. But the worst part about it though is that it gets to the point where later on you're not even scared of the minigame anymore. You're just failing it for the sake of failing it. You're scared of failing it because the fact that you don't want to start with a new character, or even worse, you don't want to start the episode over again. That's like the only fear, and that's not a good thing because I would know that playing an episode over again is monotonous as hell, and it takes all the scare factor out of it. So the mini games are by and large the worst part. Now, would I say that the mini games don't need to be removed? No, but I would say that honestly, this game probably needed some kind of real threat aside from just mini games. I think it needed a real threat. The mini games are the threat, yes, but they're not actively present. You get what I'm saying? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Episode 4 and 5 are different from that though. Um, anyway, but before I get to those episodes, so the puzzles were all really good. Even in episode 3, the puzzles were all really good except for the bolt cutter thing. The bolt cutter thing is still bullshit, but the puzzles were good. The atmosphere was really good. The mini games, all they did was disrupt it. Like this is the reason why, to me, that the game gets less scary as it goes on. Like purely gameplay wise, once you get past episode 2, the game's not scary anymore. Straight up, it's just every once in a while you get to a mini game. That's pretty much it. Oh, you know what? There's actually one more aspect of this that I don't know if I got to already is the fixed camera angles. I bitched earlier about the fact that the fixed camera angles without tank controls, which I stand by that they should have at least have a fucking option for tank controls. But here's the thing about that: the tank controls. Two things make this game way better than most when it comes to the lack of tank controls of the fixed camera angle. One is that the camera angles are not fixed. So take Resident Evil 2, right? That game absolutely needs tank controls because you go down one hallway and you have 5 different camera angles that have varying angles. And having to, go through all that without tank controls, fuck that shit. But like, the camera isn't static. It's like Resident Evil Code Veronica where it moves along. So you'll have like one angle at the back of the hallway looking at the character, and the character walks forward, and the camera just pans in or out with the character, makes it way better. Not only that, but also running is discouraged in this game, which makes it even easier to manage. Honestly, um, only a few times did I get overly fucked, particularly in episode one. So the lack of tank controls with the fixed camera angles was handled about as good as it could have been, but there still should have been the option. I still stand by that. Now, let's see. What is there anything else for the actual gameplay? No, I think it's about it. I mean, there's not much more to say. So now for the actual episodes. Episode 1 was really good. I liked the house. I've already given an episode 1 review, so I'll just leave it at that. It was a good one. Episode 2 was also really good. The Farber apartment was creepy as hell. Pretty much every location was creepy as hell. My only issue with it... Well, okay, so the thing of episode 1 and 2 is that it's creepy as hell the first time you go there. But then after the first time you go there, it stops being creepy as hell. The only minor exception that would be Farber. Farber apartment was always kind of creepy. But like every other location just becomes okay, well, no, whatever, once you get to it. The only exception to that is the hallway. Fuck the hallway. The stupid ass maze, that stupid ass contrived maze hallway thing in episode 2. Fuck that stupid ass contrived maze hallway thing from episode 2. Fuck it. Double fuck that thing. Motherfuck that thing. Fuck that thing to the 4th degree. Fuck it and fuck its soul. Fuck everything about it. Have I said fuck it enough times? I don't know. Fuck it again. So fucking stupid. So episode 3, I just said was bored. Episode 3 was by far my least favorite. Sebastian P. Husher. I mean, I guess his interlude was necessary. I can see it happening, and it was short, so I appreciate how short it was. Although there are still some problems with it, but his interlude was mostly fine. But episode 3 itself was just garbage, honestly. I did not like episode 3. I can say that. I did not enjoy it. It was the worst one by far. Episode 4 and 5 are definitely the best, though. So, after I just got done saying that it loses its scare factor gameplay-wise, episodes 4 and 5 in particular do not lose their scare factor, for the most part. And here's why. Because they keep tense situations in, like the flare hallway thingy. That was honestly really tense. That picture puzzle could have been done better, but the devs acknowledged that, and they did their thing with it. But both places though, episodes 4 and 5, especially 5, were creepy as hell. But unlike 1 and 2, to me at least, they never lost their creepiness. They kept their creepiness up. Like, I felt weird as fuck the whole time I was in both places. Especially, like, the graveyard especially, that mausoleum, the alchemist shit, the mental asylum, all of it, dude, that's all creepy as fuck. And I bet you that that's partly because of why they based off these games. Amnesia, The Darkness, and Outlast, they're both very different horror games, but they're both very good horror games. One survival horror, one psychological horror. They're so fucking good though, both of them, and I feel like they really played in well to it. Now I don't remember exactly what the first three were based on, but maybe they should have been based on different games. Because like 3 was hot garbage, and 1 and 2 lost their appeal after some time. 4 and 5 never did. They were both fantastic the whole time. I enjoyed both of them. Just the overall sense of everything bad. I don't really know how to put it else than that. One thing I want to mention too for episode 4. I am not going to count the bug against the game. Why? Because the bug did not lose enjoyment of the game itself, meaning episode 4. So did I have to replay episode 3 and 1 and 2 and all that? Yes. But now, okay, so like, did it detract from it? No. The glitch made it so that it fucks the game, but it didn't affect gameplay itself, right? Like, what I mean by that, There was no audio bug, no visual bug, right? No major technical issues. Cough, cough, twin mirror, cough, cough. Um, it was just a bug. It was a game-breaking bug. I'm not gonna sit there and say that episode 4 is a piece of shit because of a game-breaking bug. If the episode was fine other than the game-breaking bug. If there were bugs that actively affected the gameplay while you're playing, like let's say, okay, I'll give you an example. The wooden lady figure at the end of episode 4, right? How I couldn't pick it up and I was like, wait, what the fuck is this shit? Um, like if that was a glitch rather than like a puzzle, if that was a glitch that just wouldn't let me pick it up, I would have a fucking problem with that. Because that'd be fucking stupid, but it wasn't. So I think it's about it. I can say that. So based only on my first experiences of each episode, not the voluntary replay, not the forced replays, but it's the first playthrough of every episode, I can tell you that I legitimately enjoyed it. It was a good game. Um, and I've given letter grades to a few games. I don't really care for giving like some kind of score system like 9 out of 10 or A plus, because like they don't mean anything. Not only from anything, but also from me. Like, okay, I can give one game a B plus or an 8 out of 10 or whatever, but like in comparison to any other game, what does it really mean? Does it mean I enjoy it? Yeah, okay. I don't know. I just don't really care much for a letter grade. Like, unless there's something statistical to base that number on, I just don't care for using it anymore. I've used it a few times though. But I'm not gonna give this a score because I don't. I liked it. How about that? I enjoyed it. If I had to give a score, so that's it. I will give one hint. I'm not sure what the next game I'm gonna do is gonna be. By the way, this review is basically done now. The next game I'm gonna do is either gonna be L.A. Noire, which is not horror at all. But I think it's about the end of this. So, this has been Song of Horror. Have a nice day.